Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. What you're looking at is a portion of a payday prep video that I published on 28 November of 2020. For those of you that have been with me for a while, you may remember me saying during the beginning of this year that I felt that by the end of 2021 we would be paying 50% more, if not higher, for those things that we need in order to live, like food. I was at Costco less than a week ago and mentioned that the price of ribeye is now $16.99 per pound. Take a listen to this portion of my payday prep that was published in 28 November of last year and listen to how much ribeye was just 6 or so months ago.
And I decided to just get the regularly priced New York strips because they're already cut for me. And it was really only a savings of like 50 cents per pound. So I was like, do I really want to save 50 cents a pound so that I can have to cut this slab, trim the fat, which is money that you're losing as well because you're not getting real meat for it. You're just getting extra fat, and then repackage it myself. With these, the extra 50 cents a pound that I paid for 2 of these packs that I bought, all I have to do is just take them out of the package, put them in the food saver, put them in the freezer, instead of having to go through all the trouble of cutting them. So I ended up buying a couple of these, and these were $7.99 a pound. I really wanted to get some ribeye. The ribeye was, I think, $12 and change a pound. Now, I did run into this item right here.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, that's more than a 40% increase in the price of a cut of meat. In this case, it happens to be ribeye. And I do understand that probably ground beef is still at a lower price compared to the price increase of other cuts of meat. But what you have to understand is that they do this on purpose. They keep ground beef at a lower price, percentage-wise, than the other meats, because then they can use ground beef in their CPI, in their consumer price index. They can use that dollar amount instead of the aggregate dollar amount of all meats put together. Because they say, well, ground beef is still beef, so they're not going to include the price of the other cuts of meat into that amount because ground beef is the cheapest. Now, as I stated earlier this year, that I felt that prices are going to be 50% higher by the end of 2021 than what they were when the year began. I still stand by that. And it seems like maybe I'm wrong, ladies and gentlemen. It seems, according to this article, that it's going to be more than 50% on the things that we need to live. Because the new CPI numbers just came out, and they came out at 5%, which is even higher than what it came out last month. I believe that last month the CPI came out at like 4.7%. And what you have to understand that these are on top of each other. So for example, let's say that the CPI came out at 4.7% last month. And then this month it came out 5% higher than what it was last month. So that adds on top of each other. Meaning that by the end of the year, we're going to be at more than 50% what we were the beginning of this year. I've often said, and I've been saying this forever, that prices of everything, not just food, but everything is going to continue to get higher because mathematics does not lie, i.e., 1 + 1 = 2. And you cannot fool mathematics, ladies and gentlemen. With all of this money printing that's going on, prices are only going to continue to go one way. This is not transitory. Don't short the meat market. Don't short the food market. Meaning, don't hold off buying food and putting it away in hopes that a year from now it'll be less expensive than it is now. This is the time to prepare, ladies and gentlemen. Here it says consumer prices jump 5% in May, fastest pace since the summer of 2008, and higher than Wall Street expectations. The 3.8% rise in the core inflation rate, ladies and gentlemen, which, listen to this, it excludes food and energy prices, was the sharpest increase in nearly 3 decades. Surging used car prices helped drive much of the inflation. Initial jobs claims totaled 376,000, which is a touch higher than what was estimated. Consumer prices for May accelerated at their fastest pace in nearly 13 years as inflation pressures continue to build in the U.S. economy. Now, ladies and gentlemen, remember, what is inflation? Inflation is when they print money out of thin air. That is the definition of inflation. is when the monetary supply is increased. The price of goods going up is a symptom of inflation. So that's why every time that you hear the word stimulus or money printing or QE, it means, ladies and gentlemen, good citizens of the United States or whatever country you live in, because almost every country does it, we are getting ready to steal your wealth. Because when we print all this money we're planning on printing, without your permission, of course, it is going to devalue the dollars in your pockets. And we are realizing that now, ladies and gentlemen, in real time. The Consumer Price Index, which represents a basket including food, energy, grocery, housing costs, and sales across a spectrum of goods, rose 5% from a year earlier. Economists surveyed by Dow Jones have been expecting a gain of 4.7%. The reading represented the biggest CPI gain since the 5.3% in August of 2008, just before the financial crisis sent the U.S. spiraling into the worst recession since the Great Depression. The only thing that the Fed and the government can do to combat this, ladies and gentlemen, in my opinion, they will not do. They tried doing it a little bit ago, and the market started going south. Remember last year during March when the market just dipped, it went down like 30%? It wasn't because of the health crisis. It was because the Fed had started inching rates up. I think they got up to maybe 0.50%, and then the market said, no, this isn't going to work. And then the Fed adjusted their playbook in an instant. So if the Fed tries to increase rates, that causes deflation, which means that the strength of your dollar is higher, which means that you can buy more with those dollars. However, when deflation is created, the stock market goes down. Why? For the same reason, because you can buy more stocks with the same number of dollars because your dollars have more value. They're not going to do this. The other way they can create deflation is to stop borrowing money. Is for the government to stop borrowing money and taking that money, that freshly new printed money from the Fed, and putting it out into the economy. The way that the government spends money is by either borrowing it from the public, which is a net zero, because they're taking money out of the economy and borrowing it from the public and then spending it back into the economy, which is net zero. That doesn't really cause inflation. But the other way that they get to spend money is by borrowing it from the Fed, by printing treasury notes or treasury bonds, selling them to banks, and then the banks sell it to the Fed with freshly printed money. And then all of this extra money that's freshly printed money gets added to the economy. That causes inflation. Do any of you think that the government is going to stop borrowing money? Number one. And do any of you think that the Fed is going to hike up interest rates? Number two. I think that neither will happen. And if one of those two things does happen, then get ready for a really crazy summer. Though the inflation readings are well above anything seen since 2008 and 9, the Federal Reserve has been largely dismissive of the numbers. Well, of course, ladies and gentlemen, why wouldn't the Federal Reserve be dismissive of the numbers? Because they're not going to admit to their own failure. And another thing is, I don't think that anyone in the Federal Reserve goes shopping at a supermarket. They probably have someone do that for them. Why, ladies and gentlemen? Because they're in a different club than you and I are. Central bank officials believe the current rise is due to temporary factors that will abate as the year goes on. Ladies and gentlemen, do you really believe that? Do you really believe that this is temporary after what I had just told you? Please do your own research so that you can convince yourself. That way you can prepare if you're not preparing. And if you are, make sure that you keep those gaps filled in. In my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, I would pack it to the rafters, because nothing's going to get any cheaper anytime soon. The strength in the top line indices was driven largely by categories that have been heavily disturbed by the health crisis. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, everything has to be blamed on this health crisis. Everything is blamed on this because it's not their fault. It is not the monetary policy that the U.S. has that has been contributing to these price hikes. The more persistent categories of inflation, the ones that do a better job at capturing the sustainable trend, are significantly more subdued. That means that the details of today's print continue to support the idea that the spike in inflation is transitory, even if it is more intense than most forecasters would originally have anticipated. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. They will continue to lie to us until the dollar has absolutely no value. We have been hoodwinked, and the gig is just about up. I honestly don't know how much longer they can keep this up. I mean, we already have several countries that are openly saying that they don't want to use the dollar anymore because of our malfeasance and how we create dollars out of thin air. And we have a few countries now that have officially adopted Bitcoin as legal tender. What do you think they're getting ready for? Do you think that they see the writing on the wall? Do you think that maybe they're saying, we better have a backup plan just in case this dollar thing doesn't work out? It continues to say here, used cars and truck prices continue their climb higher, rising 7.3% on the month and 29.7% for the past 12 months. Now, who do you think buys used vehicles, ladies and gentlemen? Most elitists don't care about vehicle prices. It's the average Joe, the average person on the street that needs 4 wheels in order to get back and forth to work, that needs a vehicle. And now we're looking at vehicle prices for used vehicles up 29%, almost 30% for year over year. The new vehicle indices increased 1.6%, its biggest single month gain since October 2009, and was up 3.3% for the 12-month period, the highest move since 2011. And listen to this, ladies and gentlemen, the gasoline index is up 56.2% year over year, part of an overall 28.5% increase in energy during the period. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the rest of this article here is just talking about employment and unemployment and stuff like that. What's the message? The same message I've been putting out for a very long time. Get prepped up. This is the same message with new data. And hopefully it convinces some of you that maybe have not been paying attention, or maybe were naysayers in the past, thinking that this is actually going to roll over and good times are going to be back. Well, let me tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, good times are back. These are good times. $16.99 ribeye is good time. $6 a pound hamburger, these are the good times. We're going to remember these times as the good times. I mean, I remember talking about how a 50-pound bag of rice went up by about 30% since last year. It doesn't sound like a lot, right? But 30% is a lot. When you break it down into the numbers, it just doesn't sound like a lot. All right, so a 50-pound bag of rice went up from $20 to $27, which is roughly 30%, 35%. $7 extra doesn't sound like a lot. Well, go ahead and continue to add that up to everything that you eat. Take a look at your grocery cart when you go shopping and see how much you're getting for the same amount of dollars that you spent a year ago. If I was a betting man, I'd bet the house on saying that you're getting a lot less. There's nothing that we can do about this, ladies and gentlemen. Don't fool yourselves. There is nothing that we can do to fix this systemic problem that we're having within our financial system and within our government. All we can do is prepare on a personal level and hopefully encourage those that we love to prepare as well. So get prepped up. Thank you very much for joining in. Remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. Ladies and gentlemen, remember tomorrow at 2 p.m. Alaska time, 6 p.m. Eastern time, we will have our Friday live stream. So hope to see you then. I'm Alaska Prepper. I am out.